Thank you, Brother Devin. It is good to be with you. I've been here before, but it's been a while. And as Devin said, I do some promotional work for the School of Biblical Studies in Jos, Nigeria, which is in Northwest Africa. And the school started in 1989 with 12 students. We have had our 31st year. Solomon Agu and Steve Worley were the two gentlemen who came up with the idea of having a place to train Africans to teach Africans the gospel. Solomon Agu is an interesting story because he had graduated from the University of Jos and came to Ole Miss to get a master's degree to go back and teach in the University of Jos there in Jos, Nigeria, which is in the northern part of Nigeria. And the further north you go, the more predominant the Muslim population is. So it is a challenge to be in that area. And but anyway, the school has grown. It started with 12 students in 1989. When I was there in May of this year, we had our graduation exercise. We had not been able to do that for the last 2 years because the government had shut down gatherings of more than 50 people. And so even though I'd bought a ticket in 2020, I was not able to go, but I did go this year in the month of May. We have the students go on campaign for a week, come back, we do our lectureship for a week, and then we have graduation. And so since we'd not been able to have the graduation exercises in 2020, we invited those graduates and the ones from 2021 and 2022 to come and go through the exercise of graduation. Our students come not just from Nigeria, but from other African nations. And in the slides in just a few moments, I'll show you that we had I think it was 12 different nations that were represented in those 3 classes that went through graduation. And we had 115 who went through graduation exercise. Some had not been able to come back because it's expensive. They'd gone back to their home country, and so they couldn't afford to come back to go through the graduation exercises. But we had 115. Not all of them went through. We have a 2-year program that gives a certificate and a 4-year program that gives a degree. And we have just this year added a master's degree to our program in Jos. And that's a great benefit. You all were very helpful, and I'm thankful for what you did. We had brought Solomon Useem over to Freed-Hardeman College or University to get his master's degree. And you helped him, supported him for a year in order for him to be able to do that. He has gone back to Nigeria. He is in the southwest part working in Lagos, which used to be the capital, but Nigeria is one of the most heavily populated nations in Africa. I mean, people, everywhere you look. And that's in the north where I've been. We fly into Abuja. They moved the capital from Lagos to Abuja in 1994. And so Abuja is a very modern city. You would think, you could think you were in some part of the U.S. Driving in Abuja. But our school is 4 hours north by car. And so it's when I went this year, I'd hoped to see Solomon Hussein. I didn't get to see him, but he is preaching in Southwest down in Lagos, which is the other end of the country, and that's further than Mobile to Birmingham. So, you know, he was not able to be there. But let's go ahead and begin with the slides, and I'll just tell you what you're seeing there. On the left, the black gentleman is Francis Lavallee, and he is from Benin, which is further west in Africa than Nigeria. He came 4 years ago. He graduated this year with a bachelor's degree, and our bachelor's degree requires 2 years of Greek and 2 of Hebrew. I didn't have any Hebrew when I went through Harding, but I did have Greek 1 year, but we require 2 years of Greek and 2 of Hebrew. And because of that, the University of Jos, we have an affiliation with them. They consider Jos School of Biblical Studies their language department, their language school, because we have the Hebrew and the Greek. But this gentleman has spent 4 years in Nigeria. He's only been back to his home once in that 4-year period. On the right is Adam Cox. Adam is involved in this work. Adam is employed by the Muscle Shoals school system. He works in their IT department. They have 3 or 4 fellows that service all the schools over in Muscle Shoals. And so he does IT work for us, the School of Biblical Studies. The Gospel to Africa is a website that will tell you much of what is going on. But what Adam was doing there was interviewing Francis, who was about to go back after his graduation to his home country of Benin and continue to work and spread the gospel there. So let's go forward one. Okay, this is the newest dorm we have. We had originally just a men's dorm, and any female students that we had to live off campus, and that created a concern because we couldn't always find really good situations for them. So we built a new dorm for the men, and the ladies now have the original men's dorm, which is not as large as this one. But we have about 135 students enrolled currently. The majority of them are male students. And you say, well, why would you have female students in the School of Biblical Studies? Well, some of those female students are daughters of gospel preachers, and they would like for their daughters to meet future gospel preachers, if you can believe that. But anyway, aside from that, in Nigeria, unless the Muslims have complete control of the school system, the parents of students are given the opportunity. Would you like for your children to study Islam, or would you like for them to study Christianity? And if they say Christianity, then our female students are qualified and can go into those school systems and teach all of the children that have signed up for Christianity. They can teach them about simple New Testament Christianity. So there's a great opportunity there for future influence. So, but the majority of our students are male. We usually have 25 or so ladies, but they have to go through and take the same classes the men do, so they get the Greek and the Hebrew as well. Okay? Let's move forward. Let's do this. When I do this, we'll move on. Okay. Ladies, how would you like to clean house with this broom? It is straw. It is wrapped on one end, and you will see later what I'm talking about when I say they bend over and they get down. I can't do it, but they bend way down and get down to the ground, and they just do this way with that broom. It's amazing, and I thought I just need to get a picture of one of those things. They don't have a big stick on them where you can sweep this way. You have to get down where the ground is or the floor is to be able to sweep. Hello, hello. There we go. Okay, this is on our campus. We have a 15-acre campus, and it is located high. It's on a kind of a hill. And one thing that you have in Nigeria, or at least in Jos, huge boulders, big rocks. And when you are going to build something, you have to clear those. And part of our campus still has some of these huge boulders, and you'll see those in a few moments. What they do is they build a fire around them to heat the rocks, the big boulders, and then they get them hot, and then they put dynamite in and then explode. And that's how they break those up. And that creates a problem because even though we have a security fence around our campus, when you do that, those rocks just go everywhere. And if you're not careful, the neighbors who live just outside have tin roofs, and their roofs are very thin tin. And so we had a situation while I was there this year. They were doing some clearing on one part of our campus, and a big rock went through one of the neighbors' roofs, and the mother just panicked because it was in the room where she thought her child was sleeping, and it landed on the bed. But fortunately, the child had slipped outside playing, so there was no danger, but we did have to repair the roof. That's just one of those things that happens. Okay, these are mango bushes. They're everywhere. Some of these that you'll see in just a few moments are not as mature as these, but that's the mango fruit. And it's very abundant there. And this is our primary classroom building. You can see in the lower left there part of our fence. We don't have a concrete drive all the way through, but this is our major classroom building. We have a library. We have other facilities that I'll show you in just a moment. But Dr. Tom Ekpod is our current president. Solomon Agu served as president for more than 25 years. Dr. Tom Ekpod, his father was a preacher down south, and he now has earned his doctorate degree and is the president of the school. Okay. This is Benjamin, this is Brother Dowda. He and his wife. That's an interesting story. We have a Bible correspondence course center on campus that serves all of northern Nigeria. And this young man is the one who is responsible, and he is so excited. This is the outside of their home. It is not fully finished, but he had been able to save enough to, he had had problems with his landlord, never could keep his landlord happy where he was renting. So they built this house, and they were so anxious for Adam and myself and Brother Worley to come out and see that, their new house. we went, and the part of the exterior had been finished. This is the rough part that had not been finished. It had dirt floors. It had a wooden bench and a couple of plastic lawn chair type things. That was the furniture they had. But they were so happy to be in their own place. And so, you know, it doesn't take a lot to satisfy people who don't have much. They have a home now. And so that was exciting to them. But he is in charge of all the Bible correspondence work throughout northern Nigeria. We have a Bible correspondence course in one of the congregations in Abuja. Abuja, as I say, is now the capital city. They have about 6 million people, and there are 41 congregations of the Lord's Church in Abuja. Many of them are small, but there is one congregation that has between 300 and 400 members. They have elders, but in a city of 8 million, you know, 6 to 8 million, that still is a very small minority, and there's a lot of work to be done. One of the things they do have computers, they do have cell phones, but they are interested in reading things. They like material that can be put into hands. And so we have Bible correspondence courses and do follow up with that, and that's a regular part of the work. So moving on. I thought some of you who do gardening might be interested here. These are gardening tools. This is a hoe. It's shaped kind of like this, and they dig everything out by hand and plant at the top of that hill that they build up. You'll see that in just a few moments, okay? That's just another view of that, so let's move on. Here you see how they've piled up the rows, and these were some fellows. This is on our campus, by the way, and one of the things that happens is we don't have a cafeteria for them. The men do their cooking, the women do their cooking. So we have areas on the campus where they can grow food. They plant yams, which it's shaped like a watermelon and it looks like a coconut outside. And so we think of yams as sweet potatoes. Well, they have sweet potatoes, but what they call yams is a great big thing. But students can use areas on campus for the growing of food. All right? This is a situation, these are all foreign students. They're not Nigerians, but they have come and they were in these graduating classes. We had, as I say, 115 who went through the graduation exercise. The one on the far left there is from Uganda, and his name was George, and I don't remember his last name, but what they have is Brother Chuck Corden, who has taught. He went last year and taught for a semester, and he is there teaching now in the School of Biblical Studies. But he was in the States and went back in August to Nigeria. But when we went in May, Adam Cox and myself, he had us take, there were 6 or 7 boxes. Each of them had 4 terabytes of material that are part of World Bible School. And World Bible School had given him the authority to copy that and send it to Nigeria. So each of our graduates from different nations was given one of those packages of teaching material that they can use in spreading the gospel. And the young fellow, George, had a really interesting story, because he said when the Catholic priest first came to Uganda, his grandfather was the first individual that welcomed the Catholic priest missionaries. And so his family is Catholic. Interesting story with George. He, was a young man in the 10th or 11th grade. And on one occasion, he was out walking, and some people, there was a Church of Christ in that area, and some people, they were apparently having a gathering, inviting other congregations to come. So people had come from another area, and George was walking along, and they asked him if he knew where the Church of Christ was. And he said, yeah, I know. He said, it's close by. He said, if you want me to, I'll go with you and show you where it is. Well, he did, and they invited him to stay for, I don't know whether it was a youth group meeting or what, but he stayed, and he was impressed. And in a very short period of time, he got interested and was actually converted in a short period of time. But when he told his parents that he was no longer a Catholic, they got upset with him. And they said, listen, we're not going to pay your school fees. We don't deal with school fees here unless you're in college, you have fees. But even in high school in Nigeria, they have to pay school fees. And so his parents said, we're not going to pay your school fees if you've done this. Well, he said, what do I do? He had a friend who came to him and said, listen, I know what's happened to you. I'll pay your school fees. And he did. And so he got through that year of school. At the end of that year, the school headmaster came to him and said, you're such a good student. We're going to excuse you of your school fees until you graduate. He graduated. He was able, his parents weren't happy with him, but he was able to go ahead, finish high school. Then he came and spent 4 years in Jos and got his bachelor's degree. He wants to go back to Uganda. He sat down and Adam did an interview with him just like he did with Francis. And what he said, there's an area in Uganda of 2 million people. And there are only 2 very small groups of people who are trying to restore New Testament Christianity. He said, that's where I want to go and work. 2 million people. And he will do a good work. I have full confidence in him. I was so impressed. But all of these got that 4 terabytes of material that they can take back, and they can reproduce it, but not sell it, of course. But they have permission from World Bible School to reproduce all that material and use it in teaching the gospel. Okay, let's move forward. Same group, and that was just more of a close-up. So move on. I said boulders. Those rocks, there's a guest house on campus, and Brother Steve Worley built that, and he and whatever visiting missionaries come through stay there. Brother Corden lives in that when he is there teaching. But this is on the veranda, front porch, looking out, huge boulders. And you can get out and walk through there, and you can see etchings that are probably hundreds of years old of people who have been in that area. Okay, moving forward. This is the inside of our newest building on campus, and this is a multi-purpose building. We had to have graduation in the Ring Road Church building, which is about the same size as this. And in the past, we have had that building packed. We've had people standing outside with the windows open, and this is in warm weather. All they had was ceiling fans, but we never had enough space for the graduates, their families, their friends. This building will seat 400 to 500 people, and we had that many people there for our graduation in May this year. You see the flags that are hanging there. One of the things we did after Adam and I got there, Brother Steve was already there, and we had to take a ladder, and it went up to, I think, 90 feet, but to stretch a wire across the building and hang the flags of the graduates that were graduating this year, representing the country. So there were like 12 different flags that we had to arrange. One on the left there has the red, white, and blue, and that would be Liberia. The black people who were returned to Africa and established the nation of Liberia. Okay, moving along. Again, this is the building at the far back you just get the corner of is our library, and it in about a month is going to be getting a new roof because it was several years old and was beginning to leak. One of the great needs we have is for books, song books, religious books. I've got a good friend, Jerry Western, who does a lot of traveling and promotional work for one of the television Brotherhood programs. He goes up into Ohio and he meets retiring preachers, and he says, what are you going to do with your library? And they say, well, we don't know. I'm a, quote, retired preacher, semi-retired, and I want my boys, have 2 boys and 2 girls, but I want my boys in particular to have preference, anything in my library they want. Then I'd like for them to have that first, but the rest we will send to Africa. Because they need good materials, study books, commentaries, things of that nature. But we have a good library, but one of the things that the students often say is we need more research books in our library. And that's going to be especially true with adding the master's degree. By the way, Solomon Useem, that you all supported, is preaching down in Lagos, and one of the things he did, he took his thesis that he had written for his master's degree at Freed-Hardeman and expanded that and into a book which he has published, is now available in Nigeria. So you're having an impact there whether you know it or not. Okay, advance, please. There again, mango tree. You see some corn in the background there. Corn is a common product, but again, you see the rocks. And on the right side there is one of the containers. When we ship things to Nigeria, the Healing Hands International helps us, because we can store stuff there for 6 months until we get a container full, and then we'll ship it to Africa, and it gets to Nigeria, and you buy the container, so we get to keep it and use it for storage there on the campus. Let's advance, please. Again, these are the young mangoes you've seen. Not around here, but that's something you see even on campus, because they're growing food that they can use and benefit from. You do see the electrical pole in the background. One thing about Nigeria, ladies, think about this. This is why most everybody in Nigeria cooks with gas. You get electricity, but you get it about 3 hours a day, and you never know which 3 hours it's going to be. So that makes it challenging, but we have had to get some large, what am I trying to think? Generators, but anyway, yes, generators to go on our campus so we can create electricity and have it in the classrooms all the time. Okay, advance, please. This is the newest building we have. It is underway. It is now, I think, complete, but this was in May when I was there. It's going to be a medical clinic, which we think will be an asset in outreach to the community, and will also be good for our students and faculty with any health issues they may have. But you do see there in the foreground the fence with the steel spikes on it. And that's all the way around our 15-acre campus. We also train our students in raising chickens and raising rabbits, even raising fish in tanks. We do all of that, give them that experience, and knowledge, so that when they go out, if they're in a village and there's not a congregation there capable of supporting them, they can do some things to support themselves. Okay, let's advance. This is, I thought you might like to see the scaffolding there. You're in Africa and you use what you have, so they use these poles and tie things, and then you can stand. They were doing some of the finishing work on the roof that day. And they will plaster the outside of it, and it'll have terrazzo floors. It'll be a nice building by the time it is through. And I have a photograph, not a slide, but I have a photograph of a building that is finished, all except for the exterior painting. Okay, let's go ahead. There again, this is the front of it. The other was the back view. So let's move on. This I thought you might like to see. I walked into the kitchen of the guest house one day, and I looked up and I thought, what in the world? It was a moth, really this big. I have never seen anything like that. You have some crickets and other things on the screen there as well, but I said I just have to get a picture of that. Nobody will believe a moth that size. Okay. This is the interior of the multi-purpose building. We had our graduation exercise there. Like 115 were of the graduates were over on this end. This is in the middle of the building. We use it. We do a graduation dinner the night before, and the next day we have graduation. Again, it's not finished as a building here would be, but the tin roof is there. But it is a very nice building. This was the first time we had really used it. Again, the terrazzo floor, which we don't see a lot of here in the U.S., but it's very common in other countries. Okay. Now, you see we do have a few rocks in Nigeria. This fence line is our property, and all of these big boulders in here are in that end of the property. The school and the guest house and all is back on the other side of this. But this is where they were doing some clearing and had put the dynamite in, and it had gone over our fence and pierced one of the roofs of one of the neighbors' houses. But that's very common housing. You can see one in the upper left there that is under construction. So there's a lot of building going on. As I say, anywhere if you drive through a little village, you're just going to see people, people, people. And they're always standing by the roadside trying to sell something. You know, it's either roasted corn or some kind of fruit or bottled water. They are doing whatever they can to make a living, but the rocks are just part of what you have to deal with in Jos, at least in the area where our school is located. Okay. Again, this is another view of the men's dorm. The smaller building down behind it is the kitchen. It is separate from the dorm itself. And then if you look further to the right, you see some old tin. Well, when we got the new dorm completed, we didn't get the kitchen built at the same time. So they were using that old tin little shack back there. The men were using that for their kitchen to cook their food. Okay, let's move forward. There again, everywhere, these huge boulders, huge rocks. This is on our the area that is currently being cleared, and you see across the way somebody is building. They just find a spot, and of course you have to buy the property, but you have to clear it in order to be able to build. Okay. This again is, and if you look down to the left there, there's just a flat area that is a huge boulder, and our fence is down further. You can barely see it. Okay. There's another view. You're going to have to do some work before you can get to the place of laying a foundation. All right. This is one of the men who works on campus, and he was the one who was in charge of clearing this area. But you can see our fence with the steel spikes behind him there. It's an 8-foot fence with steel spikes on it. And of course, we're in an area where the Muslims sometimes do go on a rage, a campaign to try to eliminate all people who disagree with them. But this is, as I say, one of the employees who works on campus, and he was responsible for the clearing that was going on. Okay? That is where they have actually heated it and got it to crack. Then they can put the dynamite inside and then implode it, and then it gets smaller, where then that can be crushed and can be used for gravel. Okay. Okay, this is a school bus, as you would recognize, and the U.S. government does one thing I was not aware of. A school bus that has been retired here in the U.S., our government will pay for it to be shipped to another country to be used there. And Brother Steve Worley, I'm not sure when or how he made the contact, but he got 2 buses that were shipped to Nigeria, and we can use those when the students go out on campaign. The good thing about a school bus is nobody's going to steal that because it's very obvious, you know. There is a children's home down in the southern part of Nigeria, and there was a lady in charge, and she had the money, and she bought a new Lexus SUV. And Steve, I think, had told her that was not a good idea, but that was what she wanted to do, to carry the kids places and things like that. In 2 weeks, it was stolen. They're not going to steal a school bus. That's too obvious. One of the things that they have in the southern part of Nigeria is the Gospel Chariot. And they have a bus that will go, it's like I'm not sure exactly how to describe, but they can take this, it's a truck with a bed and all of this. On the back, they have a way they can show religious films, videos, and they have a place where a preacher can stand and preach. And they go into villages and they will set up, and they have a PA system. And so Steve had the idea of converting this bus to use in northern Nigeria, and it's going to be called the Salvation Station. Advance, please. Okay. He cuts a door, an area where he will mount a stand that somebody can come out on and can preach. You see above, he's got a rack for storing stuff that they'll be carrying. And then he will also be able to have a pull-down screen to show videos on. And this is in process, but it is an old school bus that has been converted, or is being converted, to do evangelism throughout northern Nigeria, and that's going to be in Muslim territory. But he has already, Brother Worley has already gotten somebody to agree to pay for the people who will use this for a year, and that's just another way to spread the gospel. Okay, advance, please. All right, this is, there is an elementary school on the Ring Road Church has it, and that really is on the edge of our property, but the school belongs to the church building, or to the church there, the Ring Road Church. And they have the kids come out and do exercise and take a break, and this just shows you what school situation would be like there. Okay, advance. We may be getting close to the end. Hopefully we are. This is a soccer field on our campus. It's bare. You can't really tell it, but it has a slant on it, but it doesn't affect the kids. The students enjoy getting out there and kicking that soccer ball. But anyway, that's just a part of our campus. And again, you can see the security fence there, and construction going on over behind us. Okay. Okay, here's some of the farming that goes on. They take that little hoe, and it has a handle about this long, and they will get over just on the ground. They will pile up a hill. They'll plant things right on the top. I think those are sweet potatoes that are planted there on the campus. And we planted orange trees and mango trees and things like that, especially that's helpful for the foreign students who are there and who are raising their own food, basically. Okay, let's advance. There's what I'm talking about when I say bend over. Imagine being able to do that. What they're doing is cutting grass with a machete, and they bend over just as those are doing, and go back and forth. Now, there is a weed eater on campus, a gas weed eater, but they've done it this way for so long that they many times will opt to do that. So this was an area, a garden plot. It's right over to the left from the guest house, but they bend over, and I really don't, this old guy couldn't do it. I'll just put it that way. Okay. Is that it? Okay. Do you have any questions about the work? Brother Worley worked in southern Nigeria for a few years, but Jerry Davidson and there were 2 or 3 others that did a lot of work in southern Nigeria, and there are just thousands of congregations down south. But up north until, well, when Steve went north in 1989, there were, I think, 30 congregations in all of northern Nigeria. And now there are more than 350. And so it has had an impact. The gospel is making a difference, but there's so much to do. It's just overwhelming when you think about Nigeria is the most heavily populated nation on the African continent. And almost anywhere you go, any nation you go into, there will be people who have immigrated from Nigeria. And one of the good things I found, even in having gone on mission trips in the Caribbean, those who are converted, if they come to the U.S., they want to identify with the Lord's church. And it is exciting to think. And I appreciate what you all did in supporting Solomon Hussein. He's going to be a very effective worker for the Lord in Nigeria. He's down south. He may eventually come back and teach in our school. I don't know for sure. I don't think there are any definite plans in that regard at the moment, but he is a very fine young man. I have a lot of confidence in him. I had hoped to get a kind of a written report from him, but that did not work out. But again, I hope you are encouraged to know that not only in Nigeria, other African nations are being influenced. In Uganda, one of our students, Ron Agwansa, went back and started a school for training preachers there. You think about the number of souls that are there. And there, Solomon Hussein is doing some television work. So he is trying to reach out, teach as many people as possible. Again, I appreciate so much your support of him and making it possible for him to get his master's degree. And so he is one who is well qualified. He will do a good work for the Lord. If you have no other questions, we'll take a break. Okay, thank you.